And we continue to talk about that church shooting in South Carolina last week. The 21-year-old suspect, Dylan Roof, has been charged with 9 counts of murder for allegedly shooting and killing churchgoers at that historically black church in Charleston. Over the weekend, a blogger discovered a website that's been attributed to Roof. That site has now been shut down, but the New York Times reports it was loaded with images of Roof at slavery museums and Confederate heritage sites. The New York Times also says there was a racist 2,500-word manifesto found on the site. It's not clear if Roof wrote it or if he had control over it. So many questions persist on this troubling topic that we're pleased to bring in psychologist Dr. Terry Lyles. Terry, thanks very much for your time. Sure. We appreciate you being here. In light of this manifesto that's being linked to Dylan Roof, do you think the Charleston shooting was racially motivated, or was it mental illness, or a combination of both?
You know, JD, that's the question that I think everyone's asking. And it's really hard to ascertain that because we don't know his motive. We don't really know what it is. There's enough artifacts around to say it was definitely, a hate crime, as we would say. And that's a broad term for, could be racial. There could be overtones of that. Did he have a psychotic episode? We won't know until other things happen. I just think it's very odd that a person could sit in a church with people there worshiping for a period of time, like an hour, and then open fire on them. So that says a lot about the mindset that this man had walking into this church. But his motive, we won't know for a while.
And witnesses say that the Bible study and the love the parishioners showed him had him hesitate for a moment before he went through with that dastardly act.
Sure.
As a psychologist, is there any way to explain to us what drives someone like that to commit this type of mass murder?
Well, I think you mentioned a very powerful word, which is love. And love is one of the most powerful words on the planet. I mean, it covers a multitude of sin, as we know. But hate is strong as well. And regardless of what his entire motivation was, they were obviously trying to love him and, work with him. But whatever motivated him to the point of doing this, he was at a point of no return. It's very possible that the mind gets to a place that it anesthetizes to a fact that I'm numb, in other words, to what's happening, and I'm solely focused on what I intend to do. And that's a very dangerous state to be in. And obviously, he was there. What drove him there? We don't know. The end result was it was tragedy.
This murder in Charleston is leading some to take a look at the history books and the headlines of yesteryear. And over 20 years ago, an African Jamaican, Colin Ferguson, committed a mass murder on the Long Island Railway.
Sure.
And to the point, his rage was such to the point that he turned down the court-appointed attorneys, wanted to represent himself, and said it was his intent to ignite a race war. So you see this, and I guess we search for historical precedents or examples. There is a need for us psychologically to try to come to grips with, isn't there?
Absolutely. And there's so many gray lines of differentiation of sanity and insanity, and it comes to a point of where are we, what drove us to that point on either side, and what we do as a result of it. Action always has to be separated from just a thought. Thoughts become actions over a period of time. And obviously this young man had it all thought through, had a plan, executed that plan. But racial war has been going on for a long time. I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think our tolerance has to change with the changing times, and that's an ongoing challenge that I think all of us, as you said, continually have to get our minds around and to be more tolerant of each other regardless of our race, our creed, or our sex.
Dealing with race relations and the dialogue that surrounds it is nothing new. I recall during my days in college visiting with a professor. I didn't have this particular professor for class, but he maintained that African Americans were incapable of racism. Now we have the Colin Ferguson situation 20 years ago on the Long Island Railway. Why is there a need to expand this beyond the perpetrators to indict the races, if you will?
Sure. I think that inclusion process has been ongoing. I went to high school in the 70s in Indianapolis, Indiana, and that's when busing started. So I went to an interracial school, and it wasn't by choice, and there were fights every day. What was interesting is on the football field, we were all the same. It didn't happen. And it was because there was a common goal, a common purpose. Outside of that in the classroom, it was mayhem. And I think our society has to grip, who are we? What are we trying to accomplish together? Because when we see something not a part of us, it automatically becomes against us unless we turn that threat to a challenge.
And the challenges remain. Dr. Terry Lyles, we thank you for your insights.
You're welcome.
It's something we will continue to talk about in the days ahead. And there is more of Newsmax Now straight ahead right after this. Stay with us.